The stars were quiet that night. Far beyond the dark sky, a massive warship moved through space like a silent shadow. It was shaped like a blade, long and black, cutting the darkness in half. This ship did not bring peace. It carried fear. Inside the command room, alien Commander Tarax stood tall. His armor was made from the bones of worlds he had already conquered. His cold yellow eyes watched the blue planet that slowly grew larger on the screen. Earth. Tarax had seen hundreds of planets. He had broken them, burned them, taken everything they had. But this one looked small, weak, green and blue like a child's toy. His soldiers laughed when they saw it. "One ship will be enough," said one soldier. "They have no chance," said another. Tarax said nothing. He never joked. He only conquered. He raised his hand and the ship began to move closer. But as they approached Earth, something strange happened. The ship's scanners flickered. Numbers began to jump around the screen. One of the officers looked confused. "Commander, the planet is blocking our scans." Tarax frowned. No primitive world had ever done that before. Not once. He stepped closer to the screen. Earth floated there, calm and silent. No fleets, no defenses, but something was hidden. "Send a landing team," Tarax ordered. "Yes, Commander." Moments later, their landing craft broke through the thin clouds and entered Earth's atmosphere. The sky was gray. Ash floated in the air like soft snow. They landed in the middle of an empty city. Tall buildings stood like broken teeth. Windows were cracked. Cars were left in the streets like ghosts. Tarax walked out first. He wore a long black cloak. His boots made heavy sounds on the cracked road. Behind him, 6 armed soldiers followed, each carrying plasma rifles.
"Strange place," one soldier whispered.
"No life signs," said another. But Tarax could feel something. It was small at first. A pressure in the air, a heartbeat under the ground. He looked around. There was no wind, no birds, no sound. Just silence. A silence too heavy to be natural. They walked deeper into the city. A sign on a broken wall read, "Welcome to New York," in faded letters. But it was clear this city had died long ago. "Commander," said the lead scout. Movement ahead. The soldiers raised their weapons. Tarax stepped forward. Out of the shadows between 2 ruined towers, a single human appeared. He walked slowly, hands in his pockets, head slightly down. His clothes were simple. Black boots, dark jacket, torn jeans. His face was calm. Not scared. Not angry. Just calm. The aliens stopped. This was not what they expected. No army, no machines, no defenses. Only one man. Tarax stared at him. "Where is your leader?" he demanded. The human lifted his head. His eyes were cold and clear like ice. He spoke in a soft voice. "I'm already here." The soldiers laughed. One of them whispered, "This is their leader." One man. But Tarax felt it again. The pressure in the air. Stronger now. He took a step back without even knowing why. The human stood still. Wind began to move around him, even though the sky was dead and still before. Dust rose from the ground. The air felt heavier. The alien scanners began to beep and flash. "Commander, something's wrong with the readings," shouted an officer. The scanners showed no numbers. Just white light. Drax's claws tightened. His instincts were screaming. But he pushed the feeling away. He had crushed powerful enemies before. This was only a human. A weak creature. He raised his hand. "Surround him!" The soldiers moved fast. 6 of them circled the human, rifles ready. The man did not move. He just watched them. Slowly, a small smile appeared on his face. Not a friendly smile. A smile like someone who knows a secret. "Last chance," Tarax said. "Tell me where your leaders are." The human tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to something far away. Then he spoke again, calm and slow. "Leave now. This is your only warning." The soldiers laughed louder. But their laughter was thin. The air was cold now, too cold. One soldier wiped his forehead. His hands were shaking. The ground under their feet began to vibrate. Very lightly at first, then stronger. Dust fell from the broken buildings. A deep sound came from the earth. A sound like the planet was breathing. One of the soldiers shouted, "Commander!" "What is this?" Tarax did not answer. His eyes were on the human. The man was not moving, but it felt like the world around him was waking up. The alien commander had faced many enemies in his life. He had fought monsters. He had destroyed cities, but this was different. For the first time in many years, Tarax felt something he had almost forgotten, a cold, sharp feeling in his chest. Fear. The human took one small step forward. The entire street cracked like thin glass. Tarax whispered to himself, "What are you?" The human looked at him, and the wind answered. The street was shaking. The old buildings groaned like sleeping giants. Cracks ran through the ground like black veins. Commander Tarax stared at the human in silence. This one man was standing in the center of the storm, calm, quiet, and unbroken. No weapon in his hands, no armor. Only presence. The alien soldiers tightened their circle. They raised their plasma rifles and aimed. But their hands were not steady anymore. The air around them was heavy. It felt like they were standing inside a storm that had no wind. "Fire?" one soldier whispered. Tarax did not answer. His sharp yellow eyes watched the human carefully. Something inside him, something cold and deep, told him this was wrong. But he was a commander. Commanders did not fear. He raised his hand. "Hold your fire!" The soldiers froze, waiting. The human lifted his head slowly. His eyes were brighter now, as if they were catching some hidden light. He took another step forward. His boots made a soft sound on the cracked road, but the earth moved like a beast turning in its sleep. "I told you," the man said softly. "Leave." His voice was not loud, but every alien heard it. It echoed through the broken streets like it carried power inside it. The lead soldier laughed nervously. "One human gives us orders." He raised his weapon. The moment his finger touched the trigger, the air around the group changed. It became colder. The wind started to swirl around the human like invisible hands. The soldier never fired. His weapon melted in his hands like hot wax. The metal dropped to the ground, glowing red, but it did not burn the human's boots. All the soldiers stepped back. One shouted, "What is happening?" Tarax's claws clenched. His empire had faced many enemies, but he had never seen this. A human without a weapon, melting advanced alien steel like it was nothing. The man looked at the weapon on the ground, then at Tarax. "I don't want to kill you," he said. "Go home," Tarax hissed, forcing a grin. "We don't run from weak creatures." But even as he said it, his voice trembled slightly. He noticed the man was no longer just standing there. The shadows around him had begun to move. Not like normal shadows. They shifted and curled like black smoke with a mind of its own. One of the soldiers screamed. They turned, but he was gone, vanished. No blood. No sound, just gone. The group froze. Tarax's eyes went wide. His sensors lit up on his wrist screen. The readings were wild, showing impossible numbers. Gravity around them was shifting. Another soldier disappeared. Not running. Not dying, erased. The commander barked, "Form up!" "Stay together." But it didn't help. Fear crawled through the soldiers like cold water. They were trained killers, but this wasn't a war. This felt like a nightmare. The human stood still. He hadn't moved. But everything around him moved for him. "You should not have come here," he said softly. His voice was gentle, but it carried weight, like a hammer hidden inside silk. "Who are you?" Tarax shouted. The human tilted his head slightly. "A warning," he said. "That's all." The sky above them darkened. Thick grey clouds twisted into a spiral. Thunder rolled, but no rain came. Their landing ship, parked at the end of the street, started to shake. Its engines roared without anyone touching them. "Commander!" The pilot's voice screamed through the comms. "Something is pulling the ship. We're losing control." Tarax looked at the human. The man raised one hand slowly, like someone picking up a feather. The entire landing craft lifted off the ground without fire, without noise. It floated in the air like a toy. Then it turned upside down. The soldiers fell to their knees, some begging in their own language. "Stop this!" Tarax shouted. The human's expression didn't change, calm, focused. "Leave," he said again. "I don't want to do more." And then, without warning, the ship dropped. Not onto the ground, into it. It vanished like it was swallowed by the earth itself. Not a single piece remained. Only a black mark where it had stood. The silence after that was louder than any explosion. Tarax's breathing became shallow. His sharp, confident smile was gone. His mind tried to find a plan, but it found nothing. The human began to walk toward him. One step at a time. Each step made the ground tremble softly. The commander wanted to order his men to shoot, but half of them were already gone. The others were too afraid to move. He whispered to himself, "This is not a human." The man stopped a few steps away. Their eyes met. Tarax felt a cold current run through his chest. It felt like the man could see everything. His past, his weakness, his fear. "Earth remembers," the man whispered. "What?" Tarax said. "You're not the first to come here, but you can be the first to leave alive." The last soldier behind Tarax screamed and disappeared. Just like the others, Tarax stood alone, wind wrapped around the human like a living thing. The commander felt like he was looking at the center of a storm, and the storm was looking back at him. For the first time in many years, Tarax understood that power was not always loud. Sometimes it was quiet and deadly. The human lowered his hand. "Decide," he said. "Live or end." Tarax could not speak. His throat was dry. His empire had crushed hundreds of worlds, but tonight he stood on a dead street facing one man. And it felt like he was standing before something far beyond a soldier or a king, something divine. Tarax stood frozen in the street. The wind howled around the human like a living storm. Shadows moved like they had a will of their own. Every breath he took felt heavy, like breathing inside water. He was a commander. He had faced armies, beasts, and burning planets, but never this. Never one man who could destroy a ship with only a look. Tarax clenched his jaw. His pride burned hotter than his fear. His soldiers were gone, but his ship was still in orbit. Above the clouds, thousands of alien warriors waited for his command. He pressed the small black device on his wrist. "This is Commander Tarax," he said. His voice shook slightly. "Prepare orbital strike." "Full power," a voice answered through the comms. "Commander? Are you sure? There are no enemy forces." "There is one," Tarax said, "and that is enough." High above the city, the alien warship moved like a black star. Its weapons came to life. Red energy lines lit the underbelly of the ship. Cannons rotated and pointed down at the ruined city. Heat gathered in the air. Tarax lowered his arm. His claws were shaking, but his mind was made of steel now. If this was a god, then he would fight a god. He looked at the human. The man still stood in the same spot, calm, silent, like time didn't touch him. "You think you can scare me?" Tarax hissed. "I've burned stronger worlds than this." The human tilted his head slightly. "You have no idea what you're waking." Tarax raised his hand. "Fire!" The sky exploded. A beam of red light fell from the heavens like the sword of a giant. Buildings turned to dust. The ground shook so hard the cracked road split open like dry skin. Fire and heat swallowed everything. The commander shielded his face. His armor heated up like it was burning. The noise was louder than anything he had ever heard. And then, silence. Smoke covered the entire street. Fire burned in black ruins. Nothing was left. No buildings, no sound. Tarax let out a slow, hard breath. He looked at the ashes and smiled. "No one can survive that," he whispered. But then, the smoke moved. It wasn't the wind. It moved like something was pushing it aside from the center. Slowly, calmly. From the heart of the burning crater, the human walked out. No burns. No scars, no fear. His boots touched the cracked ground, and the fire moved away from him like it didn't dare to touch him. Tarax stepped back without meaning to. The human looked at him. His eyes were glowing now like cold blue fire. "I warned you," he said quietly. The commander roared in anger. He pointed at the sky. "Fire again, fire!" Above, the cannons charged again. This time 2 beams came down. Twice the power, twice the heat, the ground screamed. The buildings that were still standing finally fell like sand. The world turned red and white. When it stopped, there was a hole in the city wide as a stadium. The smell of burning metal filled the air, but again, the human walked out. This time the air around him shimmered like invisible armor. Every step he took cracked the ground more. Dust and light rose behind him like a wave. Tarax's soldiers in orbit began shouting in panic through the comms. "Commander, it's not working." "The target is still alive." This is impossible." Tarax's hand shook. For the first time in his life, he could not give an order. His empire's strongest weapons had done nothing. The human lifted his hand slowly. The sky answered. The alien warship shook violently. Metal groaned like a living creature in pain. Inside the bridge, alarms screamed. "Commander!" shouted the pilot. "We're losing control. Gravity spike around the target. The massive ship began to tilt, slowly at first, like a giant waking from a dream. Then faster, Tarax looked up. The entire ship, his ship, it was moving. Not falling, lifting. No, he whispered. The human's hand was still raised. A bright blue glow surrounded his arm, pulsing like a heartbeat. He wasn't using machines. He wasn't using weapons. He was using himself. Above, the warship broke the clouds. Its heavy frame tilted sideways. Entire sections of the ship tore apart like paper. Thousands of alien soldiers screamed inside, powerless. "What are you?" Tarax shouted. The man's voice was calm. "You faced a human," he said, "but now you stand before a god." The commander felt the ground fall beneath him as the ship floated higher and higher, held up by nothing but invisible force. Then, with a small movement of the man's fingers, the warship was thrown back into orbit like a toy. A shockwave rolled through the empty city. Windows shattered. Dust exploded into the air. Tarax fell to his knees. His hands shook. His breath was fast, uneven. This wasn't a battle anymore. This was judgment. The humans slowly walked toward him, boots crunching on broken stone. The storm around him was silent now, controlled, perfect. Tarax's mind was screaming. His soldiers were screaming through comms. But the human said nothing more. The commander stared at him with wide, terrified eyes. Why are you doing this?" The man stopped in front of him. His eyes burned like stars. "Because your empire forgot," he said. "And I remember." The ground around them pulsed like a heartbeat. Tarax realized then, this was not just power. This was something far older, far greater. And he had just started a war his empire could never win. The night sky was torn open. The alien warship floated high above the clouds like a broken moon. Its engines flickered. Its metal frame cracked and twisted. It had been thrown back into orbit by nothing but the power of one man. Down below, Commander Tarax was still on his knees. The dust around him had stopped moving. The storm had gone silent, but the silence was worse than the roar. His soldiers in orbit kept shouting through the comms, but their voices were distant. His mind was fixed on the human standing before him. The man's eyes glowed a cold blue light. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Power filled the air like electricity before lightning. "I have faced war gods," Tarax whispered. "I have crushed armies, but what are you?" The human slowly turned his head to the sky, watching the broken ship float. The wind bent around him. The earth seemed to breathe with him. "You wouldn't understand," the man said softly. "Your kind sees worlds as targets, but some worlds—" Remember, his voice was calm, but every word hit like a hammer. Tarax forced himself to stand. His legs shook like old metal. "This is not possible." "No human can do this." The man's cold eyes met his. "No ordinary human," he said. "But I am not ordinary." The commander raised a shaking hand, trying to activate his communicator again, but the device on his wrist cracked like thin glass. The signal was gone. The human didn't even touch it. The man stepped forward. "A long time ago," he said, "your empire came to Earth, long before your name was written in any star map. You came with ships, soldiers, fire. But you didn't understand what you were stepping on." He placed his hand on the ground, and the ground answered. The cracked road glowed with soft blue lines that spread like veins under their feet. The light traveled fast, rushing through the ruins, up the buildings, across the horizon. Tarax looked around with wide eyes. "What is this?" The man's voice became deeper, stronger. "This planet is not just a rock. It is alive. It remembers every scar, every invasion, every death. When outsiders came the first time, humanity awakened something buried deep inside the earth. A power older than your empire. A guardian." The blue light rose higher, climbing the walls like rivers of light. The air trembled. The sky rumbled. "That guardian," the man said, placing his hand on his chest, "is me." Tarax stumbled back. He had heard legends. Ancient stories told to frighten young soldiers, about a world in the outer rim that destroyed fleets without firing a single shot. A world that burned an empire to ash. But those were only stories, or so he thought. The human continued. "For centuries I have slept beneath this land, waiting, watching. And every time someone like you comes, I wake up." His voice echoed through the city. That felt like the planet itself was speaking through him. Tarax's communicator buzzed faintly. One of his officers shouted through static, "Commander, We are losing power. Gravity fields are unstable. Something is pulling us down. The commander looked up. His ship, a warship that had crushed worlds, was being dragged closer to Earth like a leaf caught in a storm. But it wasn't gravity. It was will. The man's will. Stop this! Trax roared. Do you want war? The human finally looked at him. War, he smiled faintly. You don't bring war here. You bring your end. The blue light gathered behind him, swirling into the air like glowing rivers. The ruins shook, but nothing collapsed. The power was controlled, perfectly balanced, as if the entire world was listening to his heartbeat. Tarax pointed a clawed finger at him. Your world will burn. My empire will not stop. We are endless. The human stepped closer. The commander could feel heat on his face now, not from fire, but from pure, raw energy. Empires end, the man said softly. Mountains fall. Stars die. But some things are older than stars. I am not your enemy, Commander. I am your reminder. He raised both hands. Above them, the alien warship froze in the sky. Alarms inside it screamed. Whole squads of soldiers shouted in fear. They couldn't move. They couldn't even fire. The ship was caught like an insect in invisible glass. You think you rule the galaxy, the man whispered. But here, on this world. You kneel. The commander dropped to his knees again. His armor hit the broken stone. His pride shattered faster than his weapons. Trax whispered, Why spare us? Why not kill us now? The man looked at the cracked earth beneath their feet. For the first time his face softened. Because once humans were like you, blind, hungry for more. Someone gave us a warning, and we learned. He turned his glowing eyes back to Tarax. This is yours. The sky cracked with thunder. The alien warship shook. Metal beams snapped like sticks. It hovered on the edge of total destruction, held together by the man's mercy alone. Tarax fell forward, his claws digging into the ground. What do you want? The man's voice was cold as steel. I want you to remember. The blue light around the ruins began to fade, slowly sinking back into the earth like water into sand. But the pressure in the air remained, heavy, clear, a warning. Go home, Commander, the man said. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them Earth is not to be touched. The commander trembled. He had never obeyed an enemy before. But this didn't feel like an enemy. This felt like standing before something ancient, something sacred, something no empire could break. He nodded weakly. The human lowered his hands. The warship in the sky stopped shaking. It hung there, broken but alive. Slowly it began to rise higher, pulled back toward space. The man turned away and walked toward the ruins. The wind followed him like a loyal animal. Tarax watched him disappear into the broken city, feeling smaller than he had ever felt. And in that moment, Tarax understood something every conqueror feared. Some worlds don't need armies. They only need one guardian. The alien warship hung in the sky like a wounded beast. Its engines burned weakly, metal twisted and broken. The night above Earth was quiet, but it was not a peaceful quiet. It was the quiet that comes when something powerful decides your fate. Commander Tarax stood alone in the ruins. His soldiers were gone. His weapons meant nothing. His empire, so proud and strong, felt far away now. All that was left was him. And the man. The human guardian stood at the edge of the cracked street. The soft blue glow around him had faded, but the power was still there, silent but impossible to ignore. The ground beneath his boots pulsed like a heartbeat. The wind obeyed him. The commander stared at him with wide, tired eyes. Why? Tarax whispered. Why let us live? The human turned his head slowly. His eyes, no longer blazing like fire, now held something else. Something heavier than anger. Judgment. Death is easy, he said quietly. But memory, that lasts. The commander tried to stand straight. His body hurt, but his pride hurt more. We will return, Tarax said, his voice weak but stubborn. Empires always return. The man walked toward him. Every step echoed through the empty city. Then remember this moment well, he said, because when you return, it won't be me waiting. It will be the world itself. Tarax swallowed hard. The air around them began to bend. The ruins trembled. The sky opened wider, revealing the stars above. It felt like the entire planet was listening. Above, the alien warship tried to pull away, but it couldn't. It hung like a fly in a spider's web. Then, slowly, it began to descend. The commander looked up in panic. "No! No, stop!" The human raised his hand gently, like someone moving a single piece on a board. The massive warship stopped in the air, hovering just above the tallest ruined tower. "I can destroy it," the man said. His voice was calm, flat, like stating a fact. "But I won't, because what I give you today is not death. It's fear." Tarax's breathing grew faster. He had never feared anyone before, but now he feared a man without a weapon. The human's blue eyes flashed once more. "Go," he said, "and tell your empire. Earth is not yours." The alien ship began to move again, not flying on its own, but lifted by an unseen force. It turned slowly, like a giant being dragged across the sky. Then, with a thunderous roar, it shot into the stars, vanishing in a burst of white light. The commander stumbled backward. A strange mark burned faintly into the armor on his chest, a glowing blue symbol he didn't understand. It wasn't just a warning. It was a memory carved into him. He fell to his knees, looking at the sky where his ship had gone. His empire was vast, filled with countless warriors. But he knew deep inside, no army could defeat what he saw tonight. The man turned and started to walk away, deeper into the ruins. The wind followed him again, swirling around his steps. His figure grew smaller with each step, but his presence didn't fade. It stayed in the air like the sound after thunder. "Who are you?" Tarax whispered. The man didn't turn around. His voice came back like a soft echo. "A guardian." Nothing more. The commander bowed his head. He had never bowed to anyone in his life. Not to kings, not to gods. But tonight he bowed to one man on a forgotten world. Far above the earth, the alien fleet drifted in silence. Thousands of soldiers stared at their screens, shaking. None of them understood what they had seen. They were conquerors, but now they were the ones who had been conquered without a single shot. Tarax appeared on the bridge of the ship. His armor was cracked, his face pale. Every soldier turned toward him, waiting for orders. He said nothing at first. He simply walked to the center of the command deck and stared out the window at the small blue planet far below. "Commander," one officer whispered. "What happened down there?" Tarax's claws tightened. He spoke slowly, clearly. "We faced a human, but stood before a god." The room fell silent. "And what are your orders, Commander?" Another asked carefully. Tarax turned to them. His voice was like steel. "We leave this world. We never return. And if anyone asks, we tell them the truth." The crew lowered their heads. They knew. When the galaxy heard this story, it would travel like wildfire. Earth, the sleeping world. The world with a guardian. Down on the ground, the man walked through the broken city. The glowing veins of blue energy sank back into the earth. The night returned to silence. He passed empty streets and silent towers. No one else was here. Only him. He looked up at the stars for a long time. This was not the first time he had done this, and it would not be the last. He placed his hand on the cracked stone wall. The world pulsed once more beneath his palm like a living thing. It spoke to him without words. "Sleep," he whispered. "I'll wake again when you need me." And then he walked into the shadows, vanishing like he was never there. In the years to come, the story of Earth's guardian spread across the stars. Empires whispered the name like a warning. A world where one man lifted a fleet. A world that made conquerors kneel. No one returned. No one dared, because everyone knew. They might face a human, but they would stand before a god. The end